Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, A-list thugs, aka White Boy D-Boys, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. And nice everybody in here, Smelly Balls, the Beatitudes, YouTube enjoyer, most handsome streamer in the group space. I certainly don't feel that way today, but I do appreciate it. We are looks maxing around here. And Christ is indeed king, world champion, C1405, nativist friend. Appreciate seeing everybody in here. We have a lot to get into, and unfortunately, so much of it happened while I was gone and away over the weekend, and I missed yesterday too. I didn't mean to miss yesterday, unfortunately, but just with my side work, it's just the way it works out. And man, it was a lot. And I guess let me start. I'll zoom out and go back a little bit. We're going to get into a lot of news today. We're going to cover largely everything pertaining to the current state of the Iran war and just the chaos that has become. If you saw the thumbnail and the title, that's the gist of what everything seems to be, which is we are just making it up as we go. And more so I say we, I mean the Trump administration and everyone else that is, tangentially attached to this, including Israel. And a lot of the communications, very misleading. And this is probably the most dense fog of war I would say I've seen maybe in my entire career of paying attention to any event. They say nothing ever happens, but it feels like there's a lot happening right now and today. And wow. So the last thing that I talked about was on Friday. It was the last day that I had covered it, and I didn't really pay attention to Saturday, but I did catch on later on Saturday that after I had talked all week, that after everything I was seeing, all the sentiments, I was fearing that we were heading towards not just a group invasion or a ground invasion, but a nuclear strike, a particular tactical nuclear strike. And so to see on Saturday night, Nick Fuentes air out those same things, I believe it was with Sneeko. It was either on Saturday night or Friday night. I can't remember. He missed Friday, so it was Saturday. He was on with Sneeko and he was saying, I fear there will be a tactical nuke. And it kind of was a moment where I was like, hey, my political instinct seems to be sharp. But at the same time, what maybe like the worst thing to possibly be right about would be like, hey, I think we're getting towards a nuke. It's like, I actually kind of hope I was wrong on that. But these are kind of the tensions I was seeing. And again, I think I gave a bit of a case, a bit of an argumentation of why I think that was the case. And so we're going to do a bit of a recap on some of the stuff that I did miss to kind of bring us up to speed between the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And now we are on day 11 of the war, if you've been following it from the beginning. And again, I will say also, Rerum Novarum, a fantastic account to follow during all of this. I know many of you may have been paying attention to the Middle East Spectator. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I've understood and what I've seen, the people behind the Middle East Spectator, or the person who was behind it, has been like arrested or something was going on to that effect. So if you have been following that page and there's been some mix up there, I would definitely recommend checking out Rerum Novarum. They're a great kind of news aggregator. One of my top ones I go to, actually. And can I see everybody in here? Yeah, new Reuters report says 150 Americans have been injured so far. It seems we kind of we're doing two different counts here. I believe the official death toll for U.S. Americans right now is, the official one would say 8. I do believe it's where we're at right now. I think there's some back and forth over this one guy who had a medical episode in Kuwait, so it could be 7, 8, or 9. There seems to be a bit of a dispute over a couple of them in terms of what the actual injuries came from. I think most people kind of chalk it up. Of course, it was a bomb. Logic, forgive me, says the Doomsday plane was deployed, and we saw multiple reports of this, actually, that the Doomsday plane and nuclear armed planes actually had been making their way to the Middle East. I didn't see much more corroboration from that beyond Myron Gaines saying that he's seen the reporting, and also Kyle Kalinske was pushing that. It seems we've kind of perhaps maybe moved in a different direction. I think again, a large part of what we're seeing, the kind of recoiling, what's happening is a reaction to the oil prices. And so if you guys are paying attention to the episode of America First from last night, you probably have an idea with where I'm going to be going with a lot of what we're talking about today. And nice to see Caleb in here as well. I'm glad you can catch it live. Yeah, especially been working a lot. Trust me, I feel that's where I've been. It's where I've been trying to pay attention to like the news feed while I'm doing work as well and taking care of the kids and, you know, making sure the wife isn't, you know, screaming at me. No, she's nice. She's nice and she supports me. So with that, we'll get into it. We're going to start. It's going to be probably a long episode, I would imagine. I want to say at the very top too. I think I had a couple announcements, but I literally didn't even write them down. So forget about any announcements from me. I will say again, thank you to our sponsor, Athenor Metallurgy. His website is in the description. You can find that below. And I do believe the last I spoke to him, the website will be getting revamped soon. So expect some changes on there. But a huge shout out to Athenor and largely for Christian for reaching out and bringing the sponsorship to you guys. So thank you for that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Cut straight through, offensively accurate, that's the view.
So we're going to start today with some of the themes that we're going to be running through, some of like the consistent themes of the episode today and what we're getting through from the weekend and coming through today. Now, again, obviously as these things occur throughout the day, there's a difference in time zones. And so that's why you get news kind of seemingly very densely populated in hours most people aren't even awake. And again, that's partly because of the times of day difference overseas there in the Middle East. But here's the first one. It's absolute chaos. Like I said at the beginning, it was already on fragile grounds that we even initiated this strike. Now with what's happening with the school and the Tomahawk missile with the school and these just increasing and exacerbating just blunders from the administration, from what they were talking about with speeches, etc. And then on top of that, the difference of opinion between international reporting and domestic reporting, it's just hard to tell where most people even are. Like I would imagine most people probably have a different opinion of how the war is going, depending on who you're talking to. And this kind of is leading into this very obfuscatory element of the fog of war. And so I'm sure you're going to get different opinions from who you're talking to, right? Some people probably are going with what Trump is saying, which is we're hitting them hard, we're winning greatly. But many others who are paying attention to maybe some more international sources are realizing this is actually not the case. This is, we very well may be needing to tangle with the idea that America is losing, and not just losing, but losing badly. And I think there's some reports that are showing and coming out from BBC correspondents from Tel Aviv that are showing just that. So even if it wasn't America was suffering greatly, it seems that Tel Aviv may have been taking some more losses than they expected to. And the one big element here is it seems like, again, part of the reason why Iran is so capable of defending against the United States of America is, well, it's because they saw it coming. Well, why was Iran able to see it coming? Was it because perhaps maybe they gave a bit more credence to the Greater Israel Project and the actual political and strategical goals of Israel and Netanyahu and the American Jewish diaspora? I would say yes. And it's by the fact that they did take it seriously. They did take him at their word. They did pay attention to the Likud Party's movements through and through. They know the history better than probably the majority of Americans do. And I think that this can't be missed, which is, this is why Iran is putting up such a good fight. They didn't sit here and look at like the Greater Israel Report and go, wow, these guys just must hate Jews. No, like they actually looked at the legitimate history and the strategical and political objectives of these countries, and specifically of Israel, what they want for the region, what they want from Iran. Well, they took that seriously. And this is why their defense is so capable. It's because they didn't sit there and allow other operatives to come in and say, well, don't be an anti-Semite. Of course, Israel doesn't want that. They took facts as facts, and therefore they're serving them a purpose, which is a great defense. And in fact, a defense that was built particularly to defend themselves from a joint strike coming from America and Israel. Wonder why all of their military bunkers and everything are built underground. And again, this isn't just a general defense, but even one specifically so that even air superiority over the region wouldn't mean much, because you can bomb the surface as much as you want to. But if you lack the capabilities such as a B-2 bunker buster, which only the United States has, and there are other countries that have similar, but as far as I understand, the B-2 bunker buster is the most efficient, the most capable of reaching deep into the ground and causing damage. And if even that wasn't that successful, well, then where does that put Iran right now? So I think that's the important element here. And again, we do need to take into fact what the worst case scenario of this could be. I do think you need to rope in something along the lines of the fact that one of the worst case scenarios would be a ground invasion or a nuclear strike. And then the worst case scenario from there is what happens if the United States is publicly defaced in terms of its positioning as the world power, in terms of even if people don't want the United States to be the world power, the lack of trust you may see, the broken relationships coming out of like the Arab countries. You may see other countries make moves. I think China is in most people's purview right now of like, what is China going to do? There's been multiple reports that China has been confidently and arrogantly floating naval vessels throughout the region, the Gulf of Oman, the Persian Gulf, for the particular reason of gathering intelligence and sending it to Iran to help Iran. We're getting reports too. Putin is playing both sides. Putin's got onto the phone with Trump. He's also talking to the Iranian president. And there may very well be a little roll of the dice of what may occur and what the positioning of the United States in the world arena may be. And I think that this calls into question a lot of things may change that we have grown accustomed and used to. And that's kind of where we are. It's like it feels like there's something bad is right around the corner, and it's not here to be blackpilled, but to be acknowledged and accept and be ready for what may come through that door. So to start with some of the recap, though, some of the stuff that we did miss, both the 7th and the 8th weren't that big of a day. It was more so the March 9th, which would have been yesterday, I do believe, which had the majority of happenings in it. And so this is actually, if you were to just mark this out by like happenings or events or strikes, you have about kind of just the way a news aggregator would look at this, right? So you see this on March 7th, about 7 kind of newsworthy events. On March 8th, you have about, what was that? On March 8th, there's 14th newsworthy events, so there's more than there was the day before. And then on the day that Trump says the war is complete, we have 25 newsworthy events. And so if you were to just look at it from an aggregator perspective, nothing is speaking to the fact that the war is doing anything beyond just sustaining. It is maintaining where it currently is. And so it was through the 7th and the 8th that we ended up having, this is when we end up getting that the New York Police Department announced the death of another U.S. service member that was in Kuwait. And this is one of the ones that was contested with the medical episode. You also have a ongoing struggle with Lebanon, which is largely being fought by Hezbollah and Israel. This is one that's going on the ground. You see I can't pronounce them correctly, but the Merkava tanks from Israel were deployed. Hezbollah had taken out a couple of those. And so far, what we have right now is already the refugee crisis that we saw in the previous Middle Eastern conflicts. And so it's being reported, and it was confirmed by the Lebanese government, that there's over 500,000 Lebanese individuals who are currently displaced right now. And I'm sure many of them will find their way to the United Kingdom before I'm even done streaming. And this is where we started to see the beginning of the oil infrastructure. And what ended up occurring was that Saudi eventually went and talked to Iran, or they warned Iran, rather, is probably the better way to say it. And they said, hey, listen, if you keep going after our energy infrastructure, we will have to join against you. We will have to attack back. And then throughout the day, it was just a tone down of Kuwait and other countries pulling back their oil production and refining throughput. It was Kuwait just reducing outright, and then it was with Dubai and Saudi. They had particular oil fields, they had reduced production. Then we get to the 8th. This is when CENTCOM announces the death of another soldier, the son of Khamenei, which I believe, if I'm pronouncing this right, Madhaba, is officially named the new supreme leader of Iran. That was contested for a hot minute. But then shortly thereafter, as Madhaba is announced as the supreme leader there in Iran, what ends up happening? Well, Trump essentially issues a threat. They pour Chosley, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. But I think Trump said something to the effect of, he's not going to last long. I would imagine that you should probably take that as a threat, seeing how the last one was literally blown up in a strike. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean to the sun? However, the point that stands there is all of the inside reporting, and I think largely from a lot of correspondence between CNN, I think there's another group down there, that it looks like the Iranian regime is like previously was reported in the original 12-day war, was that it strengthened the resolve of the people, and that what you're seeing is them waving flags of Khamenei. They're waving around all this pro-Iran stuff. They are for the regime. They're unified in this fight against both the United States and Israel, which is unfortunate, because the part of the idea behind what was going on was that there was such a group or a sizable faction of the Iranian people who wanted the regime out. They wanted their freedom. They wanted their secular Western world, Jewish, liberal society where they can have OnlyFans accounts and not wear clothes and be gay, and like that's something that America wants to push on people. So is the fall of the West. But then it starts getting escalatory. And that's when the U.S. struck the Iranian desalination plant, which was the freshwater reserve, which again was another prediction by that Professor Zhang guy. But again, it was an expected thing to do, looking for things that would make Iran desperate as an escalation. And that was right. And what happened right before then was the oil future prices began to skyrocket. And I think it was, trying to remember who had the original prediction, but I think it did come from Wall Street Journal, or at least they cited one of these people in the Wall Street Journal. And they shot up to like $116 per barrel, which was like a 28% rise from where they currently were at. And it was terrifying to a lot of people. And I think this is what you saw. That was the reaction to the oil prices is what made Trump and the regime and the administration go, hold on, wait a minute. Maybe we do need to pull back a little bit. Not the fact that the American people have been whinging and screaming and writhing and saying, please, like we don't want the war with Iran. It seems it was because we are concerned about the shock it will do to the global oil economy and therefore largely affecting us being the petrodollar. Thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it greatly. Native His Friend says, just posted in Discord, Iran is getting hits on target from coordinates posted by Twitterons digging through Israeli media. That's crazy if they are. That's hilarious. X has become something. It really is the everything app, isn't it? Isn't that something? That's wild. I have a RN pulled up next to me. Actually, let me see if I have my glasses so I can see this better. I'm curious if they posted about this as well. I do see that as of like 30 minutes ago, Iran did launch another wave of missiles to Israel, and the sirens did activate in Tel Aviv. Looks like they were intercepted. But this seems to be like, I mean, this is kind of foretelling a little bit of what's happening online, which is the majority of people are taking the side of Iran. The majority of seemingly the social sentiment, and you could chalk that up to bots, whatever you want to chalk it up to, but it does seem to be that the majority of the online sentiment so far is against the war in Iran. However, you do have the occasional Breland Hollyhand and the Mark Levins of the world and the Shapiros of the world who are, cheering it on, slamming their fists on the table saying this is exactly what we want. I think what should shock everybody, though, is the fact that even Lindsey Graham came out and said and asked for Israel to pull back a little bit on their strikes on the energy infrastructure. And so that's kind of what happened over the weekend and then into today, which is a lot of these have been escalatory. It was now freshwaters in play. And I can't remember if it was Iran either struck, it was either a Saudi freshwater production plant or a desalination plant or whatever you want to call it, or it was a Bahrainian desalination plant. But regardless, anytime that we strike Iran, essentially, in some certain area, they turn around and they look at another Arab country and they go, all right, which one of you is taking this? that's kind of what it is, right? And so, and then, and part of the reason why, what even gave a bit of the spiel at the beginning about people having different ideas was there was a viral tweet that was posted earlier today that had like 30,000 likes on it, which was because Iran randomly attacked all the neighboring countries around them is proof that they shouldn't own a nuclear weapon. It's like the amount of like retardium that you have to consume through your life to post something like that is incredible. And to think like that, people think like this, that they like posts like that. They go, wow, yeah, that really is a sign. It's blackbilling for one. Like, don't get me wrong, when you see how dumb people are sometimes, but it's like there's no way that people think that this is that we're still there. We're still in 2001. Are we still thinking of Iranians as like these Tatooine Tuscan Raiders? They're screeching. They're using like some random crowbar that shoots lasers out of it. Like it's just insane. And it's like it's been extremely strategic from the beginning. And again, part of this goes to the fact that most people's context windows are Fox News. And if you listen to Fox News, well, the war started in 2023. And so a lot of these kind of, misassumptions, these bad premises that people kind of launch themselves off of it. And it just continues to not even just like, I wouldn't even say poison the well, just poisons the overall conversation and makes it toxic. So many bad ideas, so many bad foundations, so many terrible base premises to then begin building everything else. It's kind of rife with that on X. And I think there is an element of this, which is the fact that Elon owns it. Elon's friendly with Trump, and it seems that they're all on the same team. They're playing ball together. And if that's the case, well, no wonder you're seeing an exorbitant amount of slop that's being boosted to you. and it's like hard to find the other ones. Like I have the time to find tweets I need. I'm having to go to Telegram to click on the link to take me to X. I can't find it directly on the platform. So, more of that. I want to make sure I'm not going to miss anything on this one. Iran then had been over the weekend was dialing back the frequency, but again, it was on Sunday they re-upped the frequency on Israel specifically. So the attack frequency on the other areas was down to like 1 to 2 waves a day, and then it was Israel specifically that Iran has boosted the frequency. It's back up to 3 missile attacks a day, and I believe that's exactly what they're on pace for today as well too. Let me get rid of some of this. There's just so much stuff on my screen. I took so much notes. And then yesterday, as we kind of went through today, now we're moving into a bit more of the Strait of Hormuz. It seems Iran is holding this with basically an iron fist, which is kind of, I think it's impressing a lot of people. They weren't expecting they were going to be able to do this. And that basically brings us to where we are today. And so today is what we got a report that was immediately confirmed by CNN, which is that the Iranians started putting naval mines out in the Strait of Hormuz, which at certain points, some of those shipping lanes are only 2 miles long. I mean, 2 miles wide, forgive me. And with that being the case, the ability for them to lay a few naval mines and essentially shut it down without having, removal or, further away striking them out. I mean, this is another huge escalation. And I think you could see just in the fact and the reaction. I mean, we're talking like 30, 40 minutes after the report comes out that hadn't even been confirmed. Trump is already on Truth Social posting. And he put in his Truth Social post that of these vessels, they've taken out 10 of the placer boats. There's a specific term for these kinds of boats, but essentially they look fairly similar to like what you would see if anybody's been in the big areas where they have the big logs, the big timber, and they like run on the timber like anything near a sawmill. They have special kind of boats that sit in the river that push things. I would imagine they have to be similar small vessels like that. At least that's kind of the vibe I saw when I've seen that. Thank you very much for the super chat from Caleb. I appreciate it greatly. He says, as soon as I took a remote contract gas price shot up. Yeah, that's well, the hope is that, I guess the hope for people right now in the short term is that the rhetoric from Trump is enough to sway, and massage the gas market, because that's exactly what happened. Now, I had mentioned how it went up to $116 a barrel, but it was shortly before then that Trump gave the statements that the war is completed, only for him to go throughout the rest of the day and waffle on everything that he had said prior. And so it does seem to be that there was a great amount of would you say influence on the market seemingly was placed on what came out of Trump's mouth at the beginning of the day. Many places, both RN and AF Post, have noted multiple times, especially with these oil prices, that it's very speculatory, and the idea being that a lot of speculation is expecting the futures to continually skyrocket as the fact that the war is sustaining, the operation is continuing, nothing seemingly is changing or differing really. And let me catch up a couple of these. Hingham McCringleberry says, the most retarded part is Trump saying Iran's Navy was destroyed, yet they somehow put naval mines across the Strait of Hormuz. He lied. And this is kind of like what the point of today's episode is like, we just make stuff up here. And funny enough, there was a man who predicted this. Now, I'm assuming he's some kind of political, savant or whatever you want to say. He kind of gives his opinions. He seems like he's at least in the know a little bit. But that was the point that he made. He was like, well, America can exit the war simply by Trump coming out and saying it's over. And it doesn't matter. Iran can even come out and say, no, it's not over. You didn't even do anything. And it wouldn't matter, because that's how much emphasis is placed on the words in the text of Donald Trump, which is, he is the God Emperor, essentially. Daryl Sherm says, this is a great stream as always, driving up Interstate 5, Northern Cali, near Oregon. Beautiful day out here. You are the best, bro. Hey, well, I appreciate that greatly. And one of the places I wish I could get to at some point in my life before I am gone and return to dust is the Pacific Northwest. I see a lot of great things from P&W Gorilla doing all of his rucks out there all of the time. It looks beautiful. And as somebody who loves the rain, it's like the perfect territory for me. North, chilly, and rainy all the time. Beautiful. I love it. Anything over 70 degrees is a war crime. It just is. My thermostat goes from 70 to 71. I immediately start donning the Hugo Boss. I'm changing it. Like, this has to, this must be removed. This has to be removed from society. And then a couple other things later on in the day of yesterday. And so these are the ones that are like becoming to be a bit more and more important as we get closer to today. One report, though, you may not have seen at all. I'm I'm not sure if this has been corroborated, but I've seen this report floating around, so take this one with a grain of salt. But the U.S. has supposedly lost 11 of its Mk9 drones, which are the very expensive ones. I saw a report that each one's a little bit over 30 million a piece. These ones seemingly are the UAV style drones, intelligence gathering drones, very, the unmanned drones, if you will. I don't know too much about them, but I do know they are expensive. And so I did see a report that we've lost 11 of them. And then I saw a report earlier today that another one was confirmed taken out too. And that one was on video or something like that. France has joined the war. They seem to be the first ones in and always the first ones out, but they did join the war. They did deploy about a dozen naval vessels, including its own aircraft carrier strike group, to the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, and also potentially to the Strait of Hormuz. It seems like they are holding off on that until they get some more information about that. But again, the hesitancy from France, I think, points again to the direction that Iran has a lot more of an iron defense of what's going on than what you are seeing in domestic American media. And yeah, Trump is 100 years old. I do feel like we're getting a lot of the kind of old man vibes from Trump, this kind of back and forth. And one of those moments we'll get to here in a second that I think was really bad. Might be its worst moment of the year so far. But thank you, Fine Gifted. Appreciate that. That's huge. Thank you very much. Was that AI World Champion? Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that greatly. We have another one from Uncle House here. He says, a lot of countries release their oil reserves, helping. Oh, I didn't realize that's off screen. Why is that off screen? My bad, guys. Maybe make it a bit smaller, though. Sorry. Isn't it rare to have, like, dead space on air? I feel like I talk so much. I feel like maybe I need to slow down sometimes. Uncle House, though, he says a lot of countries released their oil reserves, helping to keep prices down. Once those run out, the price will spike. We didn't top off our reserves and have a 20-day supply for the entire country. And this is a great point to make, too, because I was rather appalled. I don't know if any of you had seen this, actually, from Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett was making this weird video talking about how he was so angry that the oil prices had shot up, that gas shot up to like $4 a gallon, I think, in many places around the country. Because he's talking about, well, the oil that they already have from the pipelines that they already bought and got and shipped and handled. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything. Just because they already have it doesn't change their calculation over how much they may get in the supply in the future. It has immediately made their oil more valuable, their gas more valuable. There's just so much misdirection coming out, and I don't blame anybody for being confused or feeling like out of it. Like, I tell you what, to pay attention to the Iran war, Zeb and Josh, they have to handle Erica Kirk. I can't. It's just too much. I have relinquished Erica Kirk as a topic. It's like it's out of my wheelhouse now. Like, everyone else can handle it. I'm good with it. It's just too impossible to keep up with all this craziness. And I know many of you probably saw that she was she brought on as like an Air Force. Now she's like an Air Force consultant or something like that. Like, hey, Candace, more material for you, man. But it's just literally incredible. But Caleb Camarillo says, we rely on California gas refineries, so gas is over $4 a gallon. Interesting. And I do think Pacific Northwest typically sits a bit higher than everywhere else in the country. But again, it was the video from Tim Burchett. He was making a very bad argument. And maybe part of this just comes from the fact that, like, I majored in economics while I was at university before I dropped out. But like, that was, to me, it was just one of the dumbest things I've heard anybody say. Like, of course the gas is going to go up. They're just not going to like hold off on their own. Like, well, you know what? Like, the Iran war will be over in 10 days. We'll just keep gas the same price it is, and we'll expect that the supply chain will be there when it's over. It's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And Tim Burchett is somebody I typically respect a lot. And so I did see in the comments of that post that he has actually notoriously been on the bad side or the wrong side of energy infrastructure and energy policy here in America. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe he's getting a cut from somebody. Who knows? Seems to be everybody in the space anymore. The next big thing that happened yesterday, before we getting into today, was this potential false flag priming that occurred, which came as a report that came from ABC News. And I think Nick talked about this on America First as well. And that was the fact that the U.S. intercepted encrypted communications believed to have originated in Iran that may serve as, quote, an operational trigger for sleeper assets outside the country. Now, notably, what else came from this, not just this report, but what came earlier from that report, I think it was a couple of days prior to that, was that there was a report that there was an intentional effort by the White House to block intelligence reports from being dispersed and disseminated into the broader law enforcement community about said potential attacks from sleeper cells. Now, the reason being, no idea. But I would imagine part of it, no, I know the part of the reason. My estimation on that would be if law enforcement around the country began saying uniquely to their own communities and giving their own announcements, whether it was like in New York or in Texas or Arkansas. And I forget where Tim Burchett's from, actually. Where is Tim Burchett from? He's not from California. Is he? He's not Texas. Where is Tim Burchett from? I need to look that up. I need to figure that out. Forgive me, that completely blew my train of thought. Oh yeah, the false flag. In my estimation of the reason why they would not want to let it that disseminate is because think about what the public reaction to that would be. Thank you, Tennessee. I appreciate that. Because if all of a sudden, and Tiggs is somebody who's here, and I'm not going to dox him at all, but if you're familiar with where he's from, there's certain areas that we've seen these reports. One came from Tennessee, actually. That's where Tim Burchett's from, but one came from, it was like a Southwest Airlines flight that was either leaving Tennessee or was set to arrive in Tennessee, but they had some dudes on there screaming Allahu Akbar. You also had reportedly, it was the Kansas City airport and both the Miami airport were shut down. The lines were seemingly out the gate going into the parking lot. You also have what was supposedly this guy chucking a bomb there in New York City. Now, I didn't follow up with that one. That one kind of fell out of my purview, if you will. But if you were to ask me, it would, in my opinion, what would happen? What do you think the American people reaction would be if all of a sudden every law enforcement, every police station in the United States of America, especially in like large urban metro areas, starts giving out instructions that says, hey, well, because of this war and because of how bad the border was, there's really high potential that there's sleeper cells and everywhere. Well, on two counts, which is kind of crazy. On the first count, this actually kind of gives momentum back to mass deportations as people go, wait a minute, there's sleepers in here? These people need to go. So again, it kind of gives momentum back, but I don't think that's the primary reason. I think the primary reason would be specifically was because that would then also aid people who want the war to stop. If the idea is that the further this war goes, the more escalated it goes, the more Iran is willing to up the stakes and commit atrocities in America, then people at home are going to go, okay, stop it. There's no benefit here. And if we're just going to suffer cost of being terrorized at home, then this needs to end. We need to not do this anymore. So I think for a couple of reasons. But also, if there was to be a mass casualty event, if there was to be a false flag event, I do think that would give the casus belli to do the tactical nuke. And I still err on the side of I would imagine that I still think that I would imagine if I was an advisor, I would think, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I would think that the blowback, if you were to able to build the sentiment, like they said previously with like this enriched stockpile and like these sleeper cells may trigger and that's like they may come after the enriched uranium, building that sentiment on top of the report that came out like a week ago that there was supposedly seismograph reports and underground earthquakes in Iran, and you build the sentiment that Iran is willing to use a nuke to end the war, then I think that would play better if the U.S. responded with a nuke, whether you saw the evidence for it or not, than if they were to attempt a ground invasion. I think if you were just looking at it from the PR and the optics perspective specifically, I think it would be an easier sell for the tactical nuke than it would be for the ground invasion from the American people. And largely because I think it's easier to build the sentiment up that Iran is willing to use a nuke, and that be the us responding in kind being more of an easier sell, people digesting that better, massaging that down better than the ground invasion to the tune of 50 to maybe 100,000 U.S. troops, if not more than that. Dale Sharma says it's just under $6 a gallon here. Vicious. Gavin chased out all the refineries. Now they got to ship in the gas. That's interesting. Which is kind of crazy, right? Because I'd have to look at the map of the pipeline from Canada, but wouldn't it be easier to just like get additional pipes to stretch out of there? I feel like that's where it comes from. It comes from like the west side from the map. It's like from the west side, and they have to like the pipeline runs southeast. I'd have to look at the map. It's been a hot minute. And especially now too, since we have Venezuela now, and then the expectation is in a couple of years that the oil will be getting to pull from Venezuela will be the preferred option. You would think it would be in Canada's best interest to figure out how they could actually get more of their oil out. And Ragnar says he thinks it's false flags by Mossad. They're planning so many. They already did multiple all over the GCC countries in Saudi Arabia. Yes. Yeah, and well, here's the thing, and the other thing too that can't be missed with this is there's a lot of messaging coming out of Netanyahu that we'll get into here in a second. But the messaging is very specifically like he's giving a message to the Iranian people, like soon the big moment of truth will come, and we're going to set the conditions necessary so that the Iranian people can grasp their destiny. It's like all of it kind of is seemingly pointing to a at least a very significant strike, if not entertaining the idea of nukes without saying them. And anybody who's familiar with Jonathan Pollard's political, his purview is that they should just come out and say it. Jonathan Pollard recently was almost 6-7 months ago now at this point, which is that he made the push and the point rather that he finds it to be ridiculous that we play this, they play this kind of, say it without saying it game with nukes when he's like, everybody knows. He was like, we should be allowed to use whatever we want to defend ourselves and not worry about things. That's what Jonathan Pollard's stance is. He thinks they should just come out and say it. It seems Netanyahu is still holding back a little bit, and I think that's actually probably in their best interest. I don't think the PR game is at all on their side right now. Trump is most definitely surrounded by yes men. And I would say even a step beyond that too is that the yes men that's allowed to be around him is also probably gatekept by individuals like Susie Wiles and those who are close to his staff. Tix Bomber says that the pipeline is super complicated. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it's not as simple as rerouting it. I remember reading about it forever ago, and I would imagine. I guess I was just more so thinking of it would probably be both in California and Canada's interest. I mean, naturally, but again, we know who runs California, and they will do anything to ensure the destruction of this country. So, how much does it matter if it is in your interest? Democrats don't vote for their interest; they vote for other people's interest. They vote for that guy over their's interest. Yeah, because that really is what's going to be very helpful. So that's kind of bringing us up to where we're at today. And this is where, Trump begins waffling. And so after the oil prices seemingly are set down to the 86 a barrel or whatever they fell to, then Trump all of a sudden is, now it's, now we're contradicting what was said by Hegseth. Now, where the war is completed and we did all of our objectives, but, we haven't gone far enough. And so we will see it out to its end. And we will see all as far as we can. And it's just back and forth. It's nonsense. And it's just waffling. And, and so one of these quotes, I'll have it here. He says, as we leave here, again, this is coming from Trump, quote, as we leave here, I could call it, or we could go further. And we're going to go further. And that was after he had said the war is complete, which again, also contradicted completely what Hegseth had said earlier that day as well, too. Now, one of the worst moments that did come out of this was forgive me, I'm having hiccups like crazy, was this Tomahawk strike on this school. It was this, thank you very much for the super chat. That's a massive one. C cred from, thank you for your donation. I appreciate that. For $20. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. You had nothing to say. I think that's one that Nick likes the best. I enjoy interacting with everybody, as long as I know everybody too. It's the ones that I get where I don't know. I'm just like, they're yelling at me, like GeoGasser. If GeoGasser's here, I appreciate you, man. But he always yells at me. He's always mean to me. No, I'm just messing. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. But it was and so this was building, and I think where I left it at with the Tomahawk strike on the school of children there in Iran, I think it was predominantly girls, it was contested. It was contested who did it. I think the initial reporting was that it was a misfire from Iran, but now that we've gotten more video footage, more frame by frame analysis, it does show that it was a Tomahawk missile. Now, I've seen some back and forth. Some people are arguing about the positioning of where it was with the wings. I also see Scott Ritter gave a full, he was like, that was definitely ours. So I've seen it go back and forth. I'm of the mindset too, I definitely think it was ours. I think there's one particular frame that has a really great visual of the missile, of the Tomahawk missile. But Trump ignorantly says that Iran also has Tomahawk missiles, and that everybody has Tomahawk missiles. And who doesn't have Tomahawk missiles? We sell them to everybody, and he has this extremely ignorant moment. And so one of the funniest things was RN put a denotation in there, which said, Iran has never owned Tomahawk missiles. And, it's not even a laughing matter, really. I kind of feel bad that I'm even laughing about it at all. But it is this idea that this is an extreme kerfluffle, if you want to call it that, from the United States, which is the fact that they were intentionally they sent 4 missiles. I'm trying to loosely remember what the report had said. But in the words of Scott Ritter, I'll go with his paraphrasing, was that there were supposedly 4 missiles. There was 2 that fired. The 2 struck warehouses. The 3rd struck the school. And supposedly there was a 4th. But the 4th, in the words of Scott Ritter again, he says it was loitering in the airspace. And that it was loitering in the airspace to collect further data. But that it was this 4th one that when there was a resurgence of people on the area they had just struck, they had sent that one as well, eliminating parents and staff and the remaining children who had survived the initial strike of the missile. This is obviously going to not play well in front of anyone. And I entirely, completely disavow it. Obviously, I think the murdering of children in any form at all is entirely evil and morally reprehensible. But it's the way that they have kind of been going about it that has been brutal. And so I'll catch up to a couple of comments here, but I have a series of posts here. We'll go to Trump's comments himself. But Caroline Leavitt today said that people should stop worrying about it, believe it or not. So, but here's a couple more comments here. And again, thank you for the big super chat, brother. Secret95, I appreciate that greatly. C1405-0 says, I've been seeing on social media that a draft is on the table but not confirmed. Is this true? So here's the whole draft thing. Here's the reason why this has kind of been a bit exacerbated. Let me I'm gonna heart this super chat. Let me heart all the super chats I can real quick. I realize I don't do that, so I'm sorry. I do heart. I do love the super chat. I'll make sure. I feel like I don't interact with my comments and stuff as much as I should probably. But no, so the draft was on the table. Where did this come from? Where did this concept come from? So it was somebody on Fox News. I can't remember what the host's name was, but it was the host on Fox News was asking, and she contextualizes her statement by saying, there's a lot of talk about the draft and fears from what's going to happen to American sons and daughters here in America. So she asked Caroline Leavitt, what are the plans moving forward, right? What's what's happening? What is there to really fear? And so Caroline, rather vaguely answers, and she says, well, Donald Trump keeps all of his options on the table. And so that's kind of where it was at. Now, it wasn't the thing is the question had it in the context, but I could even see a defense that Caroline wasn't even answering that, maybe more so just the boots on the ground question, because that's what came directly after it. So it seems like Caroline Leavitt was more so answering the question of, will there be U.S. boots on the ground? Should we be fearing that? And I think Caroline Leavitt answered that. But even in there, you have to make the acknowledgement. We're this is a dumb woman. Maybe she didn't catch the context or understand the levity of or the power of the words that she was saying. But the thing is, I'm not going to play defense for that. The reality is that many people came out in defense saying, no, they definitely, the draft is definitely nowhere close to being on the table. And it's well, that's not what Caroline Leavitt said. And if they wanted to clarify, they should have, and they haven't yet. So why haven't they yet? Seeing how many people were running with that yesterday, and there's not been a message or anything from the administration. I think the truth is exactly what she had said, which was all options are on the table. Now, the thing is again, I'm more inclined that this is not going to go the route of the ground invasion, because I think that's going to be the harder PR sell, and I think that would be enough political backlash to, irreparably harm, I think, the Republican Party as it is currently. And furthermore than that, the relationship with Israel, but I don't care about that. I want that to be destroyed. So, yes, I think that the idea of the draft is something that is tangible, but I do think it's a bit further away than what many people are thinking it is. I just think that was probably a really bad moment from Caroline Leavitt. And the thing is, too, I think there's a few steps we have to get past before we're even entertaining the draft. I think, we have the reservist as well. There's many other branches. There's more troops that can be called to answer before I think we would begin to entertain a draft. However, if we were to entertain a draft, it would be because they decided on a ground invasion. And, so if that's the case, then, maybe it is in the cards. But I do think it was a bit of back and forth. And I think on both sides, there's some nuance to be made about the statements that were given by both Caroline Leavitt and the host. And particularly, all of these ridiculous Trump, the people who cannot remove their tongue from the behind of Donald Trump and the administration, these accounts Amuse. I don't know if anybody had seen this tweet I put out the other day, but I quoted it, and I was I even tagged community notes because it was just so dishonest. So I quoted this Amuse because Amuse said, no, Caroline Leavitt never said anything about the draft. So I quoted his post, and I said, yeah, this guy's completely right. Caroline Leavitt said that the draft is completely off the table. Trump would never consider having a draft. But that's not what was said, was it? So it's in this kind of, again, this obfuscatory place where I think they're all playing every side. They want to keep every option on the table, and I think they want to play the PR game as best they can. But again, here comes Amuse and, and Captive Dreamer and every one of these other idiots who like literally need to be excised. Nick said much worse on his show last night, but I tend to agree with that too. But these people are terrible. Like lying constantly, just like literally diving in front of like any bullet. Like there's like even strays going like, strays are hitting the kitchen corner, and you got Captive Dreamer and Patrick Casey leaping off each other to go hit it. And it's like, dog, the administration is making like objective moral failures. I don't understand what's happening here. And what do they come out and say? Why can't we just talk about maybe Trump's making some poor decisions? Why does everybody go? We fell forward again. It's just like literally the saddest tweets you've ever seen in your life. But again, that's why I try to warn individuals from following these kinds of people. I'm going to catch back up on a couple of these. Oh, Zeb Boykin's in the house. YOLO. What is up, my brother? Appreciate seeing you. I was listening into you and Josh earlier today. Tix Bomber says the Pentagon and DoD sell billions of dollars per year in weapons of mass destruction to countries we're not supposed to. Yeah, and that's going to be foretelling a bit of what we're going to be talking about today, which is the fact that the Pentagon is getting ready to request Congress for billions of more dollars so they can sustain the war. The war is complete, but we need billions of dollars from Congress for more missiles. It's the same hide sketch, bro. It says right here in my Bible, in Israel chapter 1, verse 1, Israel needs more missiles. Pentagon asked and Trump asked, and you give the God Emperor more missiles. For what? For Israel, because they need more missiles. We need to hit more children with missiles. We need more Iran schools blown up with missiles. But the war's over. It's complete. Their navy's gone. Their navy's gone. But no one's getting through the Strait of Hormuz. There's like this, it's like Casper. Casper's out there by himself. He's the best O-lineman you've ever seen. No one's getting in. What's out there, dude? Is like the Loch Ness Monster in the Strait of Hormuz? Like what's scary over there? It's causing all these boats to like not move. Yeah, it's Nessie, dude. She's out there. They're like, oh, you heard about the Nessie. I'm telling you, man, you just gotta you read the news for longer than 30 minutes and you're like, oh, like we're just being lied to. Nativist friend says, but Atlas, the Dow is above 50 grand. Spot on, actually. You're right. You're right. Nothing matters because the Dow's over 50K. Ragnar says, crazy how Israelis don't want to go boots on the ground, but expect everyone else to. Well, here's what's crazy. The IDF is boots on the ground in Lebanon. There was some footage coming out about that, but they have the tanks. So at least maybe not boots on the ground, but tread is on the ground. There's tank tread is on the ground in Lebanon. And this is like every conflict. The moment that something happens and we're involved, what's going on? Well, Israel's fighting everybody around them. And think about that too. Think about the fact that the pro-Trump admin post that's pushing is trying to attack Iran for striking the surrounding countries, which is a very strategically beneficial thing for Iran to do to put pressure on Washington. Those people are saying, look how dumb that is. But meanwhile, while Tel Aviv is being absolutely obliterated to the point that Fox News is even allowed to show landmarks on TV right now, they're the ones who are fighting Lebanon, and they're pushing out forces in other, they're fighting Hezbollah on I think it's the southern Lebanon border. It's like, dog, you're getting it obliterated. Like maybe focus on like one thing at a time. Maybe stop taking advantage of the United States being involved so you can wage all your other, expansion projects. Like it's just excessive at this point. But that's kind of the recap where we were. I was going to make sure we kind of catch up to where we were at for anybody who might have been not paying attention the last few days, but bringing up to kind of maybe the more important points of again today. I'm recapping, and here we are. It's the 10th. So now we're in the day 11 of the war. Uncle Hal says the Dow is at 47.7 and sinking. That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Well, not wonderful, but Lil Matt says Crowder is the biggest POS. He's spewing straight Hasbara. I mean, Barry Weiss. Listen, like I said, when we were watching the State of the Union, it was like, it was me, It was Zeb. It was who else was there, man? It's like, yeah, it was like me, Zeb, and Josh. We were all there for the State of the Union. I was getting that mixed up with the other monitoring the situation we did when the war broke out. We're covering the State of the Union. We check in on Crowder's stream. What's he doing? Well, for some reason, Crowder's watching Abigail Spanberger's stream from Virginia, and you can't even hear anything because this is Crowder every 3 seconds. Wow, she's just a dumb. Okay, I'm about to cuss. For anybody whose kids may be listening, I'm about to cuss. I'll give you a fair warning. But Crowder's sitting there and he's like, wow, that's what this dumb bitch has to say? They let women talk around here? Look at this dumb, stupid bitch. I can't believe I'm listening to this bitch right now. This is one of the top, like, this is one of the gold S tier conservative influencers, right? Louder with Crowder, you know, like, been on the block. Like, what? Like, what? And then this all, he sounds like a sixth grader mad at his girlfriend and you know, in elementary school. This is what we're doing now. This is the level. This is the crass nature that we have fallen to. Is this the state of the mind of the average conservative? They get off on cheap products, low IQ takes from Crowder, and dogging on women. Like, listen, bro, I will dog on women any day of the week, but that's easy. What's not easy is holding the administration's feet to the fire over how bad they are and being real and objective and not having any of these ties. But again, this is maybe the best part of being independent and not wearing a jersey. It's like, there's no pockets I gotta grease. There's no money involved here. I'm not being paid to do anything. I'm just telling you what it is, right? Crowder seemingly less so. And it seems everybody who's involved in that Rumble crowd is unfortunately compromised. That includes Viva Fry, Tim Pool, the Quartering, all of them. That whole Rumble tier of people, all compromised, every single one of them. They have been so bad on this. So much so that I unfollowed Viva Fry the other day because he was defending Dave Rubin. I'm done. These people, dude, are just, they have no principle at all besides defending the Trump administration. We will defend the Trump administration to our last breath. And maybe less so Crowder, but it's very much coming from the Quartering and Tim. And Tim's just being his usual ridiculous self. The defense sitting is insane. You know, putting out his just, again, like, it's just garbage tweets. He's like, I think Israel should defend itself, knowing people are going to attack him. Like, easiest impressions award. You know, so I'm beginning to not care at all what the podcast circuit has to say, especially for those who are like, got the check mark and the badge. And I'll tell you like what I'd tell anybody. You tune into Nick Fuentes, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Even I'm retarded sometimes. But like, I don't know what to tell people, man. Like, it's just like Nick's superfluous with it. That makes people mad, but that is my opinion. And so, okay, let me catch back up and reset here. Some of this, the top of the hour. So where we are at the top of the hour is unfortunate. Well, that's right. We were going to cover some of the missile stuff with the Tomahawk. I wanted to show you this again, because this might be the first thing I'll put on stream today. But this is the blunder. This is the comments that came from Donald Trump about the, what's the word? Forgive me. About the Iranian school, the girls' school being Tomahawk struck. And so here's some of the comments here. Pull this up. I can click on it. Lord, forgive me. Switch screens here. He says, am I listening to women propaganda? You're listening to probably the smartest, the greatest. No, but I do think that's probably the smartest thing women propaganda has ever said. This is from Megatron, which is not a typical account I enjoy following or pulling up here. But here we are. This is the really bad segment that came from Trump. And so without reading all the caption for you, I'll just let it hear for yourself. The reporter speaks pretty clearly. So here is him having his blunder of the day.
President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
President.
And so he completely folds in the end and says, well, I'll live with whatever that report is, and says, I really don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying things because I'm at the podium. Dang. Costco Law went with the Jews. He's siding with the Jews. That's crazy, man. Hey, man. Well, so appreciate your takes, though. But I sorry, I can't side with Israel. I will always be team white Christian American. I can't switch sides, guys. I don't care if it's the losing side. I will stand up for what's right and what I believe and what I think is honest and true. That's where I've always been. And so in reality, what this situation did, this response has then further exacerbated this story with the Iranian school, showing that there's this, initially they were all redirecting it. Hegseth, it was Rubio, it was Levitt. They were all saying, well, we're going to redirect you to the Department of War. I think that's who was handling it, or the investigation, whatever group was investigating it. We would defer to that. Then Trump just comes out and says, well, I was just making stuff up. I don't know. I was just making it up. I literally have no idea. And then today, Caroline Levitt said that people should stop worrying about it. I caught this earlier today. Kind of blew me away as well. But this is from pamphlets, which is very, very anti just right in general. I'm just picking up the beliefs, seemingly so. I don't know too much about this outlet. I will say that. But regardless, what's important is this 30-second clip here.
For this, we're not going to get ahead of the Department of War and the conclusion of that investigation. The president has a right to share his opinions with the American public, but he has said he'll accept the conclusion of that investigation. And frankly, we're not going to be harassed by the New York Times, who's been putting out a lot of articles on this, making claims that have just not been verified by the Department of War, to quickly wrap up this investigation because the New York Times is calling on us to do so.
Thank you.
So you can hear the obvious media uproar, right? Immediately as soon as she finishes answering the question. I imagine many people want to follow up with that. And as I see both Josh and Zeb in here, appreciate it, guys. These guys tune in to get their takes. They hear it tomorrow. Get your news. Get your OTO news yesterday here. No, I'm just messing. I can't not take shots. Everybody catches strays when I'm speaking. It's just the way I act sometimes. Yeah, But here's another crazy one, actually. And so this might not be getting covered by many people, but I did catch this by chance. And so I want to bring this to you guys to see this. This is from the Center on Conscience and War. Now, I don't know much about them, so take this with a grain of salt, because it could just be you're getting lied to. But here's what they say, and this is what their claim is. And so, bit of background, they say over 85 years helping U.S. service members and conscientious objectors. Call for free professional advice, and they give their number there for if you want to, I'm assuming for PTSD and things like that. I would imagine. Forgive me. Man, dude, Mossad's getting me. They're getting me good. But they say we got a call yesterday from a spouse of a sailor deployed overseas. Her husband told her that once the news broke of the United States being responsible for the massacre at the girls' school, they shut down all news and social media access on the ship. So, again, don't know how true this is, if it's true at all. But it is a claim. It does not have a community note on it. If you'll also notice, it's from March 9th. Today is the 10th. So it's been up for longer than 24 hours and seemingly has not been getting contended. Yet they did poison my anxiety pen. I should have known when I bought this from the Jewish market, dude. I wasn't gonna make it back. These people, dude. Why can't they just be nice, man? I don't know, just go do all this in Israel and not here. Maybe let me have my country back. Has anybody thought about asking them nicely? Has anyone asked Netanyahu in a very kind way? Netanyahu, I would really like to have my country act in its own self-interest. So if you'd really think about it, it'd be really a nice thing to do for us. Because I got options now at this point. It's hey, hey Netanyahu, hey, we're kind of thinking we're tired of being screwed. Has anyone tried? It's getting bleak out here. They're telling me we're about to have a revolution. hey, it's like Trump's calling. He's like, hey, like, so I did everything you asked. Like they're trying to throw me in prison. They said I committed war crimes. It just, brother, it's everywhere. But okay, and part of what is like it's capitulating to this madness and like, yeah, pretty please. That's funny. Part of what's adding to this overall just chaos is the fact that the IRGC is just like they're not backing down at all, and all of the statements that we're getting from it, all of like the foreign ministers, the deputy foreign ministers are coming out and they're like, dude, it's on our terms right now. Like we okay. There's no negotiating. There's no ceasefire. They're rejecting it. They're saying no. Like, hold on, dude. Like you're not controlling the room right now. We are. And so one of these statements coming from the IRGC, in addition to what came from another foreign minister, Abbas Arachi, or Aragachi, I'm probably always going to say it wrong. He issued a statement. He says, quote, we will determine the end of the war, not the American forces. And so this is another one from yesterday, and they have been continuing in this line of thought since then, but this is also coming from Tehran. So this is from a CNN reporter who's in Tehran. This has been someone who's been following a lot. He's one of the few reporters who's on the ground in Iran right now currently. And so he's in Iran, in Tehran specifically, with the Iranian official who says this. And so we have this here. So this is more so beyond that, just we're ready for a long war. We have enough missiles and weapons for 10 years. And right here, we decide when the war ends, not Trump and definitely not Netanyahu. And so we'll take a listen here, pull this up on screen. And so here's an excerpt from, I'm forgetting this guy's name, but he's been largely gaining a lot of popularity for the fact that he is in Iran right now, one of the few journalists who is. And think about that too. Think about how crazy that is. Like, obviously different in like all the other world wars, right? Like, I'm not going to expect these journalists or like, airing live streams from like, hey guys, like the gas chamber's like right behind me, dude. There's at least like, oh, wait a minute, there's no one in there. Is this even a gas chamber? No, just kidding. This joke. But again, if you just compare this disparity between like, with Israel as well too, Israel doesn't even allow journalists in, and the ones that are allowed in are only allowed to broadcast from certain areas. And then we got from a Fox News correspondent today that now they can't even show off landmarks. See, like the camera's just got to be on him, and he's like, yeah, you can't see that, but I can see it. And it's like, it's this thing happening over here. It's just like, wow. So it must be bad over in Tel Aviv. Thank you for the super chat, Loma. I appreciate it. He says, have you seen Israel and our U.S. bases? LOL, his smirk when he says, nah, we ready. Yeah, appreciate that. And I will say, I did see from Uncensored AI that they had a report, and they're claiming that there now are delays on the satellite imagery from us over those regions. And I would imagine, why is it being delayed? Well, probably because they don't want a lot of the imagery getting out there, that it may be going a lot worse than what is being told, what the rhetoric would imply, would reflect. But here's the snippet again. This is the foreign minister, and this is him dropping his balls on the war, if you will.
Iran has a new supreme leader. What does that mean for your military effort and the confrontation with the United States and Israel?
That means the system is quite functioning.
So the United States says it's drastically degraded the Iranian military, the capabilities as far as missiles is concerned, drones is concerned. How much longer can you do this?
That is one of the false narratives that the United States government is producing. Iranian military is quite strong, as you see, because they have the motivation, they have the arms that they need, which are produced in Iran. As a matter of fact, we are not dependent on any other country for weapons and arms.
So your side is ready for a long war if the United States and Israel choose that. Do you consider this an existential threat to the Islamic Republic?
It is an existential threat to the Islamic Republic, and therefore we have to stay with full might, as we are doing now.
Is your side seeking, or will you seek, a ceasefire with the United States at this point in time, and with Israel?
I don't see any room for diplomacy anymore. because Donald Trump had been deceiving others and not keeping with his promises. And we experienced it in 2 times of negotiations, that while we were engaged in negotiation, they struck us.
How does all of this end then? If you say right now there's no room for negotiation, President Trump says he wants complete surrender, what does that lead to?
There's no room unless the economic pressure would be built up to the extent that other countries would intervene to guarantee this termination of aggression of Americans and Israelis against Iran.
Finally, what is your message to President Trump as we sit here, as the war is going on?
That means that what is important for us is the end of this game. And we are ready to continue that game.
The end of this game, you mean how this war will end?
Yeah, the end of the game would be the time that Americans and Israelis would come to this understanding that this strategy is not working. And they have to stop their aggressions against Iranians.
So there you have it. The leverage from the Iranian foreign minister. They were going to decide when the war ends. That is the positioning from them. You see, Kaskulal, this is just I don't mean to be rude, but this is, again, I don't understand the calculation that goes here, because again, you couldn't even make that statement at all. So far, it's like it's clear that it's much more that the fog of war, again, and it's hard to tell on both sides, but if you were just to compare some smaller events that we do have information on, well, one would be the Iranian school. It's now leaning heavily towards the side that it does look almost confirmed to this point that it was the United States who did carry out that, when the United States lied and initially said it was a misfire from Iran. Second, you have the Navy. The Navy's destroyed. Their naval capacities have been completely wiped out. Yet today, we're getting reports that they're having to bomb small tugboats in the Strait of Hormuz because they're lining it with mines. So it's like, if anything, we're more so kind of getting used to the fact that everything coming out of the administration is a complete lie. And you can say, and of course, but both are going to have pro biases. This is like an obvious kind of thing. Maybe I do need to say these things. I guess maybe people don't get that. But of course, you're in the middle of a wartime. Both armies, both sides, every side is going to be reporting in the pro for their side. And again, a lot of this is to maintain and prevent mass shock happening from the system. If UAE is getting obliterated, and they're like, man, at this rate, we're in 3 days, we're going to have to seriously make some insane changes. They're not going to just say that. They're going to say that in communications to the White House, but they're not going to announce it to the public. The same thing with the United States. What does the United States have to stand to gain by being 100% honest about how many U.S. bases are destroyed, how many Americans have been killed? Nothing. It will only stand to lose. It will serve as a detriment or a burden to the willpower of the people for wanting to maintain and continue this war. To have 6 million viewers, that's amazing. I heard it was only 271,000. I don't know. I guess some people are just so beaten into the ground that they see a sand person and they just can't view them as having a point or maybe any sound bit of reason. And again, this whole conflict is based on the fact that the reason why it's looking so bad for America is because Iran saw it coming a long time ago. Well, why did Iran see it coming a long time ago? Because they knew what Israel's strategic objective was. They know Greater Israel Project. They know they want the hegemony on the region. They know they want every surrounding country that's not a part of Greater Israel to be a pro-Israeli government, a pro-Israeli. They want the allies. But again, I don't know. I think a lot of people are very browbeaten into a very specific idea of what these countries are, what their beliefs are, their abilities, and again, their competencies too. I think that's just a terrible framing, I guess. I don't want to be too rude, but I just think that's the insane thing to hold to a belief as. I get not believing Trump, but to believe this guy is retarded. What? It's the same thing. It's just this is just a foreign version of Trump. That just I don't know. But beyond that, though, more of what we came out to today was, again, more of this chaos. Steve Witkoff was asked directly, "How do you see this ending?" He says, "How do you see this? How do you see this ending?" And he says, Steve Witkoff says, "I don't know." I don't know. special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, who said by Trump himself, it was Witkoff, Kushner, Hegseth, and Rubio who told him that Iran was going to strike imminently, that led to the decision to initiating Operation APAC Fury. And it's the same Steve Witkoff when asked today by a journalist who said, I don't know how the war will end because I'm just a useful mouthpiece. But here it is.
So how do you see this ending, this war?
I don't know, Sarah. I know this, that President Trump is the wrong guy to go up against. That's what I know.
So how do you see this ending, this war?
Like, man. That's wonderful, dude. That's wonderful, because the administration at first it was we have to stop the nuclear stockpiling. We have to stop it because they're enriching uranium. They have the bomb. They're going to build a bomb. Then that was accomplished. Supposedly that was a successful operation. Okay, obliterated, it demolished their ability, was set them back years. Then it was regime change. Khamenei can't be stopped. We're going to entirely omit his fatwa on nuclear weapons. And now it's just, at one point Rubio said the mission was to degrade Iran's military capabilities, and now it's just like whatever. Well, now it's just like, well, whatever. Yeah, right. Yeah. Rubio's press conference, the one that he tried walking back. Yeah, we did go through that one. We have to strike them because if we don't strike Iran first, and if Israel strikes first, and Iran's going to retaliate against us, and so to ensure that we don't have many casualties, we have to strike Iran first with Israel. Then the very next day, Israel didn't drag us into the war. Israel wasn't the reason that we struck. Wow. Okay. Crazy. People can, you can just tell yourself enough lies, you'll believe anything. And again, this kind of goes in together with the majority of this chaos here. And like this back and forth, people, and like I said at the very beginning, right? I said like what I said at the very beginning. It is hard. You could go to different people and they're all going to have just different opinions of what's going on with the war because they're all seeing and absorbing different sources. And the differences between the sources cannot be understated. You go to like the Trump admin guys, it's like, we're winning the war. We're hitting them hard every day, accomplishing all of the objectives. It couldn't be going any better. And then you look at literally any other international source, including like Eastern European sources, as well as people like Switzerland too. Like, it's like, no, this is going really bad. What they're not understanding. Now they're freaking out. Arab countries are getting ready to threaten to pull out of deals with the United States because the United States doesn't have a grasp on how bad the oil and energy infrastructure is getting annihilated over there. And now the whole thing threatens the petrodollar. I don't know. The thing is like, I hope we're winning. I mean, I guess if you were to look at how it would affect the average American, I guess the belief would be, I hope that Iran's wrong. I hope they're all lying. Hopefully it doesn't affect the American people at all. But I don't believe that at all. And I think that's an insane belief to hold. And that comes into today. And so here we are today, where we are now. And this is from, this is from yesterday, but it was also echoed again today by the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. IRGC accuses Trump of trying to deceive the public opinion to cover up U.S. military defeats. And then additionally, this came from the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, like I had just said. The claim that Iran was planning on attacking the U.S. or U.S. forces, whether preventatively or preemptively, is a sheer and utter lie. The sole purpose of that lie is to justify Operation Epic Mistake, a misadventure. I didn't read that the first time. A misadventure engineered by Israel and paid for by ordinary Americans. And so I believe this is their primary. I could be wrong. They have a few different deputy foreign ministers at this point. And again, a lot of this was decentralized immediately after Khamenei was taken out. And so like if you had seen anything from Predictive History or Professor Zhang, he explained in great length, how they had these multi-level and multi-phase plan to kind of separate, to segment, and then regionally they have their own different objectives. And then Uncle House, yeah, I was getting ready to get to this. I had this one here too. He said before attacking Trump, I'll read the chat. But he says, House here says, before attacking, Trump asked the top 25 Republican donors who they wanted Vance or Rubio. The vast majority wanted Rubio in 28. And so this is supposedly the report that came out, which was the day after, or the day before the strike, or it was like right before the strike. Trump had a dinner with 25 GOP donors, and he polled them, and the quote was almost unanimously they wanted Rubio over Vance. So, you know, make of that what you will, where the donors are with everything. I think this was kind of, we saw it coming a bit. I think that the astroturfing of Rubio during the Venezuelan campaign cannot be understated. It seemed like it came out of nowhere. And I do think Rubio's polymarket numbers have been slightly rising over the last few months or so, compared to where Vance's has kind of dominated. Chad Nordgoy says, the fact Trump lifted energy sanctions on Russia tells us this is going very badly for Washington. Agreed. And they did communicate as well, too. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. Putin is communicating with both Trump, I believe, yesterday, and then he also communicated with the Iranian president. Larry Tinsley says, I believe in American ingenuity. We will find a way to win. And again, I will say, I will stress, there's a multitude of ways that America can leave. Like exit the war. I think very few of them will be viewed as a win, though. Ted Nordgoy says, and this may last a lot longer than 4 weeks. It certainly is looking that way. Like I said, they'd prepared, and like we reported on, this was about the middle of last week, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday, that they had, there was a request for 100 more operational agents to be brought there in Florida, in expectation that the war is going to last longer than 100 days and could bleed into September, which is much longer than 5 weeks. Anthony Tony says, on my Instagram, some moderate-looking Jewish girl, probably is putting out videos saying Nick is paid by Islamists. Yeah, Nick is the Fed. Yeah, that's what everybody says, right? He's a federal agent for Qatar, but also for the DC, but also for the Jews, but also for the homo lobby or whatever, I guess. Titan, what's up, brother? Ragnar says the supreme leader of Iran, who was just unalived, passed a fatwa that nukes are not allowed. Correct. He believed it's forbidden because harms innocent people. If they actually had nukes, none of this would be happening. And this is kind of one of the hard lines here, which is that it was well understood, at least by the CIA and the Pentagon, or at least those intelligence agencies, that Khamenei's son was much more of a hardliner than what Khamenei was. And that they had all had intelligence that if you take out Khamenei, you are going to get a much more radicalized IRGC in Iran as a whole. Because they like the guy, and he's been in power for a long time, despite all of the fake stories you see about the 30,000 protesters being harmed, despite there being literally zero. Can anyone corroborate that? Can we get some corroboration on that? It's been floated around a bajillion times. And but that was part of the point. You know, this was the Ayatollah was sitting there and saying, like, this is like, and I think he had a bit more of a robust stance on it, but largely his position was that it was not in the best interest of the Islamic regime to pursue nuclear weapons. Ted Nordgoy says, let me switch over this one. Oh, did I get us another super chat? Hey, thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate it. I'll get to it in just a second. Chad Nordgoy says, I don't believe Israel is pushing this to destroy Iran as much as to use Iran to destroy the American empire right before they flee to Asia. Can't be surrounded by U.S. bases when Gen Z assumes power. There's been talk of this in this kind of relay race type thing where Israel is like leaping off of America to get them into a higher status while also pushing America down in a way. And like many people have said, I think this is part of what goes into like Professor Jang and many other people's predictions, which is that this is going to be how America exits the Middle East. It'll be such a bad loss, such a bad public stunt, bad PR, bad optics overall, will result in losing the midterms and then subsequently losing in 28. And it will be seen as one of the worst things that was done by the administration, therefore leading to us leaving the Middle East. And I think part of that will be forced by the fact that some of the places like the UAE, Oman, Qatar, Saudi is like not going to put up with this joint partnership with Israelis if it's always going to threaten their region, threaten their infrastructure, and therefore their way of life. See, Costco Law School says again, Zhang's total CCP propagandist. I completely agree with that. He lives in Beijing. If he says anything the CCP doesn't like, he gets deported, not to be trusted. Agreed. You know what he says? He says Nick's a Fed. So Titan says it was dead long ago. Come on, we don't need black pill in here. Titan literally just gets here in black pills. Titan, don't do this, man. No, no, just messing. American Freedom Party 28. I'm cool with that. With the AFA, the American Fascist Party. N-word, I don't know. He says, did you just quote the effing chunk high school teacher? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Oh, yeah, Jang. Yeah. Did you just quote the effing chink? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the most ubiquitous person who's been putting it out there. Yeah, there's other people who are saying it too. That's a statement against who you are. Like, okay, dude, go be a retarded and what? Somewhere else, dude. Like, what is this with people, dude? Like, I don't get it. Like, and I get blackpilled by how retarded people are too. Revolution this, revolution that. Like, dog, you can't even lose weight and talk back to your wife. Like, please miss me with all of that, please. It actually just pisses me off more than anything. It's like, trust me, I want better days too, but stop sitting here and telling me you're gonna go fight the US government, dog. I can't even get you into the gym, bro. It's just like, it's dumb. And then the organizations too, like the organizing and stuff as well. Like Nick said it best as well too. Like, and all this going on, but where's any right wing led protest that's not being headed by Jake Lang, who's an obvious Jewish agent? Okay, like we're gonna go straight from arguing on the internet to revolution. Like, I don't know. Maybe I need to be harsher. Michael Crawford, thank you for the super chat. He says, Ayatollah Kamani, if you can hear this, please save us. Hashtag free Ayatollah. I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much for the super chat. And Lumet says, we knew this would be the case. No S. The sun's going to be more hardline. Agreed. NM Garode says the IDF was training the cocktails. Lumet says, don't see how anybody could think Nick is a Fed. You can just listen to the way he talks and tell he's not a Fed. I agree. I think some of us are more in tune with that than others, I guess. But Joshua VanDerNoord says, shout out. Yeah, shout out to Joshua VanDerNoord. He is maybe he might be the best. He might be the only Jew who's like savable, actually. I'm just messing. I appreciate seeing you here, man. But moving on to some of the other stuff we have here. Last night per Reuters, again, Iran is betting on itself. This is from Reuters. Iran is betting that it can outlast the U.S. and Israel by cutting energy routes and shocking global markets to force Washington to back down. And I think this is going to be the operating element here, which is it wasn't the people screeching. Well, I say that not to be attacked, but like I'm screeching here too. But the polling data on the deportations, a few leftists are up in arms, like hey, don't deport people. Tom Homan's like, dude, we're pulling it down. You're totally right. No deportations. We're done. We're pulling it back. You're totally right. Like, yep. I ran more that nobody asked for. That Charlie Kirk in his final moments said, please, this would be a catastrophic mistake. Don't go to the Middle East. Don't do it. No living, breathing human being that has a soul wants the Iran war. And that's how you got to view it, dude. The people who want it is just like NPC, man. I'm rooting for you, man. I don't hate you, but like, you got to stay away from me. Yeah. And so I think it's that operating element to the fact that they know that it will be the oil prices. That's what obviously got Washington to back off the first time. I think you saw that with the statements and rhetoric that kind of was waffling from Donald Trump, seemingly to get the oil prices to, dance a little bit for him. I think that that will be their continual strategy, which is to essentially choke out the UAE, Saudi, and Bahrain. And I think they're also taking on Jordan as of like yesterday or 2 days ago. I think the strikes from Iran started hitting Jordan. I could be wrong about that, but I do think Jordan has been getting struck now too. And Jordan primarily has like a big base that we help operate out of with the Royal Jordanian Air Force. And because it was like in 2019, we came in and it gave like $150 billion expansion to one of their air bases. I can't remember what the upgrades were, but there's like a joint, I think it's primarily owned by Jordan, but I think it's like because we paid money into it, we're allowed to use it too. Seems to be the case. Mr. Moss E says, we can do the revolution, but I need weekends off for Call of Duty and I don't know. I appreciate that, man. But that's what I'm saying, man. I don't say it like, I'm not saying it. I don't say like, and here's the thing, dude. Like, I'm somebody who looks at the founding fathers and I go, this is how we should. This is like what we should be doing. Like imagine like sitting. And here's the thing too. People pushing out all this stuff about anti-accelerationism and all that, and they're like, it's always been the lesser of two evils. It's always been. It's like, really, dude. Can someone point to me on a map like when George Washington voted for having America as a country? Like, when did the founding fathers vote on that? Did I like just miss that chunk of history? Like, the founding fathers all sat down and they voted for America. They voted, and the king was like, you know what? You should have representation, and you know what? You should be sovereign. You should have your own government, and we're just going to back off completely. Like, obviously not, dude. Obviously not. Politics has not always been the lesser of two evils. And if you could make that argument if you were like, the politics of like the last 80 to 100 years of American politics has been this. But to limit that to that's always been politics. It's like, am I being microwaved with like the microwave ray? Like, why is my brain melting? Like, oh, dude, the retardium, that's my kryptonite. Oh, someone has the retardium, and like, I'm on my knees. I'm like, please put it away. Please stop. Please don't do that to me. Please stop. But I mean, the thing is like, I mean, if you just look at just look at the track of all other empires, period. What happens to all other empires? How many empires lasted forever? Is there an empire that was here when Jesus was around that's still here, in its same form, in its proper form, with the same borders? No. So like this, like accelerationism is something that you can't move away from, right? This is kind of the more the deeper of the argument. I thought about this over the weekend too. But like, what's the argument with Republicans and Democrats? Republicans are just like Democrats, but like they're like speed bumps for Democrats, right? These are your options. You have accelerating into degeneracy, normal speed, and then you have accelerating into degeneracy in broken society at slow speed. You have the regular version, and then you have the slowed and chopped version, right? It's like, hey, dude, this one's kind of funky. It's like, it's kind of slow, but that's the natural order. Empires fall. That's such as the nature of man. This is like, and I don't know, part of it is I've been using a lot more of a biblical lens of looking at these things, but Republicans are the slow acceleration and Democrats are the fast one. It's just a matter of what speed you want to go to. Accelerationism is not what's being discussed. It's always accelerating. It's a matter of, do you want it to accelerate fast or accelerate slow? And this idea that like, I mean, at some point, like, it's going to be violent. I mean, like, look at history. Now we are in a different era, so it may go different ways. And I think this brings in and ropes in this idea of a dystopian society, right? I think the only way that you would get perhaps maybe not history repeating in the vein of a kinetic element would be the dystopian societies that you see that's talked about in Atlas Shrugged, in 1984, in Brave New World. These kinds of ideas that's like, in order to maintain the forever empire, you would have to do something that would be so innovative or technologically would circumvent the natural behavior of human beings, which you can see is discussed in these ideas, which is the informational warfare, controlling people, all of these elements in there. And this isn't me saying I expect the American empire to fall. I think that's just natural. I think that's a given. I think that an empire can become a republic. I think a republic can become an empire. I think there's a lot of different directions it can go. I don't think it automatically spells a blow up and a secession and all that. But I do think that you have to omit mass amounts of history to hold to these ideas that like incrementalism is something that works, or that this idea that like, there isn't going to be some major catastrophic blowout, because that would be unprecedented actually, compared to the rest of world history. So sure, it might not be 5 years or 10 years or 20, but when they're looking back at an America 300 years from now, the expectation that these political systems will be the same, I think that's, to me, that's retarded. So that's why I'm like, accelerationism for me is like, it's not even a matter of it being on the table. It's just a matter of like, how do you deal with it? And especially when you're looking at it from the purview as well of like, man is fallen. these are like, and then we're fighting, and part of this is also like fighting as a post-millennial Christian, fighting the worldview of the premillennial Christians. And it's the eschatological battle that you're seeing being displayed through the kinetic warfare happening too. And so there's so many different routes that you could go here, but I think a lot of it is people are just looking at too many things in a vacuum. It's like, no, you don't have to use X and Y. You can use United States and Israel. You don't need to look at this in a blank space. You can look at it for exactly what it is in the specifics. And also world history is right there too. Like, are we really saying like there's this uniqueness about our situation that's like different? Sure, you could say there are things, unique elements, but how different are we as human beings here in America, as human beings in other societies or other empires? Maybe our jargon's different, what we like, and our cultures are different, but I don't think, many other white European societies have risen and fallen. But again, I could go deep on that. I could probably have a debate on that alone, to be honest with you. And I think these are kind of, they're important things, especially because I think the most important thing about a belief is what the outcome of said belief is. Like a belief is typically 2 and 4. Like if you believe in this plan or you believe in this policy or this plan of action, you're believing in it is because you desire the outcome that belief will bring you. So I think that's what's very important, which is why I think it's insane that many Christians don't have a good grasp on what the differences are between post-mill and pre-mill. But not to spend too much time on that. I'm kind of ranting at a good degree. I'm a little too schizo for my liking, huh? What was that? What did I have in my water? That's a question from Assad. Okay. And I did want to play this earlier. I did make mention of this, but I just referenced there with Steve Witkoff saying, I don't know how the war will end. Well, this is Trump letting people know that it was Witkoff, Kushner, Pete Hegseth, and Rubio who gave him the information about the initial strike in the first place. So here we go. And if Biggest Dickus is in the chat, he will enjoy this. He's a big fan of Academic Agent, although I don't think he is. I've seen some pretty split opinions on Academic Agent, actually, but he says beyond parody. And what he's quoting here is another tweet from Pamphlets. This is breaking Trump. Based on what Jared Kushner told me, I thought Iran would attack us. Now, that's not the exact quote. So let's get what the exact quote is, and here it is.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And the situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion,
right here, based on
what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved.
Yep. Because Steve and Jared and Pete and I think he says Rubio, were so involved. And there you go. Kushner strikes again. That frankest. I'm so tired of hearing that term. There you go. And so who was in his ear? Well, the guy who gave him the information to let it fly was the same one who said, was it Fox, that he doesn't know how it's going to end. Let it fly. Who knows? Just whatever Israel says. And there was another really bad thing too. No, I get it being a real thing. I think a lot of people use it to avoid saying Jew. Shit, cough and jarhead. That is funny. But somebody caught this. I think it was Antelope. It was Antelope Hill. Antelope Hill Publishing caught this, and they had a pretty viral tweet. But it was one of the quotes from Hegseth talking about the mission and how it was going. And he was speaking to Israel, and he was like, we're accomplishing your mission. And Antelope Hill just quoted the whole thing and just in quote said, your mission. Because what does that mean? P. Hegseth says we're executing your mission. In fact, I don't even have this on the outline, but we need to see this. I'm going to pull it up here. Let me find it. I think I got to refresh my page. Let me make sure the computer don't go up in smokes. Let me find this here. Your mission, Pete Hegseth. Because what a crazy way to say this. Okay, this is a good one. It's not from Antelope Hill. I wish I had the Antelope Hills. I would have pulled that one up. It's from Unusual Wales. But I'll just read the caption here. To our steadfast partner, Israel, your mission is being executed with unmatched skill and iron determination. Whose mission? For the American people? For America's mission? Pete? Say it ain't so. For America? No. For Israel. To our partner, Israel, your mission. We're doing what you've asked us to do. Crazy. Pete is terrible. He has been, not in the sense of like who he is as like the official and whatnot, but in terms of like the political PR, the optics, Pete's been killing him. Pete can't get, two words coherently. He can't spin it as good as Lindsey Graham can. He's getting smoked on all these PR things, man. It's kind of funny. And, but per the Wall Street Journal, what we're getting actually, so this is from the Wall Street Journal. Trump advisors are allegedly, I'll put it back on screen for you guys to see, this is from Leading Report as well, that Trump advisors allegedly are urging Trump to find Iran exit ramp, fearing political backlash. And further than that, I think I also saw specifically, thought I had that in here, maybe not, but they want them out soon, quickly, speedily. Please, now. And what we got today seems to speak more so towards the boots on the ground element. Now we have been taking a look at Senator Blumenthal, who's been confirming some of these things coming out as well. But the reason why we've been getting this from Blumenthal, and now echoing him, Senator Chris Murphy came out as well too. We have two clips we'll take a look at. Blumenthal comes from the Senate Armed Services Committee, which is why he is being allowed to listen into the intelligence, these briefings. And then Chris Murphy is coming from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So this is why these senators are allowed access to these intelligence hearings. And so there's two of them. Is he related to Max? I don't know. I'm unsure, actually. Good chance, though, because that's just how incestuous this stuff is. But this is from the AF Post, which I know some people have conflicted opinions on from the person who runs it. But this is, again, Senator Blumenthal confirms earlier reporting by AF Post that the U.S. is on track to deploy troops in Iran. They also denote there that oil markets are currently pricing in a de-escalation of risk. And so here was Blumenthal's comments earlier, and then we'll play Chris Murphy's directly after, because they came back to back on the scene on the timeline, one after another. But here's the first one.
I emerged from this briefing as dissatisfied and angry, frankly, as I have from any past briefing in my 15 years in the Senate. I am left with more questions than answers, especially about the cost of the war. My questions have been unanswered. And I will demand answers because the American people deserve to know. And I guess I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here. And there is also, as disturbingly as anything else, the specter of active Russian aid to Iran, putting in danger American lives. Literally, Russia seems to be aiding our enemy, actively and intensively, with intelligence and perhaps with other means, and China also may be assisting Iran.
So I've been covering this. It was kind of I think Russia was initially reported before, right? It was Russia was one of the first ones being reported to being assisting with Iran only in intelligence. That was like the opening reports. Then I've been seeing reports as well. Yeah, you mean aiding their ally, right? They're on the same team, of course they are. And then with China, China has also, supposedly the reports are that they have a satellite vessel, but I don't know if that's a confirmed or corroborated thing about the vessel. What I do know is that they've been assisting with satellite imagery. And that's how we've been getting some of the satellite imagery from some of the US bases that's showing this, right? So that's been floating around on X. But again, with X being the pro-Trump platform that it is, I think many people have been noticing just how you're not really seeing anything. It feels like nothing of substance in terms of videos or photos are really actually coming across the timeline or on the For You page unless you go digging or you are already following the right people who are going to post it. But I'll let him finish this out.
So the American people deserve to know much more than this administration has told them about the cost of the war, the danger to our sons and daughters in uniform, and the potential for further escalation and widening of this war, a war of choice made by this president, not chosen by the American people, with potentially huge consequences to American lives.
And here's the thing, and I'm glad that a couple of you guys get this too, but one thing that's really like bothered me about this is like people seem to like not care at all like why a country would act in its own self-interest or like why it would like move to do certain things, like even if it is going to put like Americans at harm or it's against America. It's like, how can you not at least at the bare minimum understand why people who are not Americans, who are Iranians and who are Russian and who are Chinese be acting in their own interest? Like that's just the most insane thing to me. Like I'm not gonna praise like evil because it's just got an American flag on it. Like what we're doing is evil, and especially if it is confirmed without a doubt that what we did to that Iranian school is confirmed that we did that. I mean that is evil, dude. Now I don't care about like the war crimes and whatnot, but that is just evil, bombing children. And it wasn't even just that; it was the fact that the fourth missile, and as according to Scott Ritter, and somebody else reported this too, that they turned it into a thermobaric weapon, lighting up the air in the atmosphere as it was coming down. You know, hitting staff workers, aid workers, the surviving children, and parents who were coming to retrieve said children after the first strike of it. I'm sorry. Like my team is God. My team is Christianity. I'm rather becoming very loosely attached with this idea of what America is. Like I feel like the same way like Doomer and many others do, and you guys might feel differently about him. But like, what has America done for me? Right? Like I'm kind of in this position where it's like, what has America done for me? Right? Beyond like being what's worse. And don't take this as like an anti-American rant or whatever. But it's this idea of like, how are people expecting this extreme patriotic? Like, it doesn't matter who our enemies are, or even if we do things wrong. It's like, how can you expect to even have that connection? It's like people are suffering day in and day out. The average man leads a life of quiet desperation, just hoping he doesn't get nagged the moment he walks in the door after working 12 hours. And for the rest of everybody else, they're just trying to make it. They're just trying to survive. It's like, it's hard to, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I like, can we not see the humanity like in these people? Like, can you not like, and here's the thing, you know, I just, you know, one of the Bible verses we were reading today between my dad and my brothers is coming from Luke chapter 6, talking about loving our enemies, the burden of what it is as Christians. That is the burden. You suffer for not just yourself, but for your enemy's sake. That is what love, like that is the definition of like love, right? I'm not going to get too deep into it, but like this idea that you can't see the humanity in like these people who are different than you. This isn't me being a leftist either. Like I don't want them in my country, but like how people can't hold these different beliefs and like not balance. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe morality is much simpler than for most people than what it is for me. I don't know. I guess I find myself questioning a lot of things anymore. I think a lot of the time I'm just blown away by what I see by people. You know, it's like patriot MAGA hat, like, you know, 101, like, you know, I'm a huge loving Christian person, and then like they turn around and they're like Glassie's people. They're like, kill every sand person alive. It's like, dude, what? And then when you know the history, you're like, and you know how wrong it is, and just how like and how betrayed we are, is like this couldn't be any more evil. And this is, I think, part of what is like in enforcing the decision for Nick to go full Democrat. Like make these people, make this administration who betrayed and lied and is failing on all promises, and beyond that, not even failing on all promises, they're doing the exact opposite of what they were voted in for. They should suffer. And if the only way we can make them hurt is by voting for Democrats, like I'm kind of there with Nick. Like these people deserve it. I want to see Democrats go and investigate all of them. Let's do it. We're not getting investigations on anything that matters at all. So, okay, let's see it the other way around. like, okay. especially if and then people who attack you the most are the ones that say voting doesn't matter. Voting doesn't matter. Like we said yesterday, voting doesn't matter, but you can't vote for Democrats. It's just swimming in the retardium, dude. We're all just swimming in the retardium, man. It's just crazy, dude. Crazy, man. If you just wrote down someone's belief, like if you just wrote down like the average MAGA's statements over a period of like 7 days, you would go, no. You would just straight up be like, no. You'd be like, dude, this person has no beliefs, no structure, no. And the thing is, it's like you can't, because we're not a Christian. It's just not. And the thing is I'll read the chat before I respond to people who might only be listening, understand what's going on. Costco Law School says, I can make a Christian case of the American empire as the best thing for the poor of the world because we have a sense of bringing them along for the ride. China and Russia have none of that. The reality is, though, is this country is owned and operated by people who hate Christ. Like, so that would need to be what needs to be handled first. Yeah, I get being Christian in essence, but overall, if the operation is to install a Jewish idea of what it is for salvation and Messiah, it's way different than what a Christian worldview would be. And again, the Iranian war fails just war theory. Like if you just look at what we're doing right now, like it fails just war theory. This is a war of aggression on Iran for Israel, for Jews who have premillennial dispensationalist beliefs in the Christian Zionist crowd that are entirely heretical. And that's just the summary of America over the last 80 years. That's just what we are. And it's in my opinion that we're so far removed from it that it would require not like what do people say? Like a revival? Like I don't think we need a revival. Like I think people like need to be educated, and they need to like not just have these super loose and non-based in reality viewpoints of Christianity. I do think, and I'm saying this as someone who was raised Protestant my entire life, like what we have to take into account and take notice of the fact that it was largely a lot of Protestant chapters that are the ones who are pushing the evangelicals. I think this is one of those things that Sneako's right about. That you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that the Catholics and Orthodox were much more immune to this kind of subversion. And I think there's reasons for that just naturally because of Protestantism being decentralized. People can be mad all they want. And these are just honest thoughts. These are just raw thoughts, just like coming out of the dome. And I think we have to. What's the point of having conversations if we're not going to engage with the most subjective things, with the reality? We have to engage with this. What was it about Protestantism that opened it up and made it so vulnerable? Or maybe someone can make an argument that it was, well, because Schofield, they targeted Protestantism. You can make these different arguments. But the point is we need to tackle them. And what can't be missed are the actual objective realities of this. I get what Costco is saying in the loosest sense. I mean, if the world was perfect and it was much more, tighter to like a pre-1830s America, maybe. In terms of how that would, the money would proliferate and if American empire dominated overall. And that's the whole point of why I can't back an American crusade is because what is America? What is the American religion? We're just like this secular hodgepodge of just the Jewish left and the Jewish right. That's what America is at the end of the day. And, and so I think by population, somebody made that point. I think that's great. But again, I think if you start separating that population from like those who do hold like what we would consider heretical beliefs, I think that population begins to get smaller and smaller. And then from there, how many of those do you think would stand up? How many of those would be the first to tell you, you're being a Nazi, right? And so I don't know, man. I'm not saying it's a black pill. I'm saying I don't think we're being honest enough about the conversations we should be having if we are being serious about not going under as the American empire or the American republic, if you will. Seems we're approaching the empire, actually. Uncle House Leotardo says the old timers set this thing up as a paramilitary organization. This isn't the UN. Yeah. United Nations. The United Nations, who's warning of a incoming famine, potential famine. That's what they're warning about. But the war's complete. War's complete. U.S. bases aren't being touched. Barely any damage on our side. Yeah, not believable. Not believable. Not for everything else. But bringing this back up, I will go back to Chris Murphy again. The point we're covering is the fact that 2 of the senators who are allowed into the long-term briefings with intelligence about the Iran war are both saying the same thing, that it is scary, incoherent, and all they really feel is that the ground invasion is becoming more real by the day. It's time for you great grandchildren, to do your boring boomer part. Yeah. I don't know about that, but say it ain't so. Hey Netanyahu, that's gonna be me, dude. Yeah, dude. I think people are right though. If they did institute anything like a draft or anything like that, the draft dodging of Vietnam will look like, as in the words of Tix, it'll look like Fisher Price. But here's this from Clash Report, and this is Senator Chris Murphy again echoing the sentiments we just heard from Blumenthal about how incoherent it is and his fears of the U.S. boots being put on the ground. So here it is.
I just came from a 2-hour closed-door classified briefing on the war. It just confirmed to me it's totally incoherent. We are not going to be able to achieve any of our stated objectives. But I mention it because it's another closed-door briefing. We have still not yet heard a full explanation as to why this is necessary. We still have had no hearings in front of Congress that the public can see, and I think that's pretty simple. Because if the president did what the Constitution says, come to Congress to get authorization for this war, he wouldn't get it. Because the American people would demand that their member of Congress, their senator, whether they be a Republican or Democrat, vote no, because this is a disaster of epic proportions. It's already getting Americans killed. It's driving up prices here at home. Harder line leadership, more antithetical to U.S. interests, are strengthening inside Iran, and there's really no way that we're going to be able to destroy their nuclear program because most of it is buried underground unless we mount a ground invasion, which would be even more disastrous and more unpopular. This has just been a debacle, a 10-day debacle, and we're going to use whatever leverage we have in the Senate to try to prompt those hearings, to try to prompt that vote, and to get this administration to start paying attention to the Constitution.
So, yeah, I don't really know much about who Chris Murphy is, but this just to show you the sentiment is the same between both him and Blumenthal as being two Senate committee members who are allowed to be inside these closed door briefings, if you will. So they're both echoing the same thing. All Companion says, oh, what's up, All Companion? I haven't seen you in a minute. It says, and still no one can plainly state the cause of this war on the news. It says, I'm not even allowed to say it in daily life. Yeah, very true. And that cause is because Israel controls this nation. And so to bring you up to speed, I didn't even realize we were going this long, but don't worry about it. I'm going to get through a few more of these things here. So we have the Fuentes network was reporting the Iranian mine deployment, which again I talked about at the beginning of the show, but it was that U.S. intelligence has been seeing indications that Iran, forget to switch cameras, that Iran has been seeing indications that Iran may be preparing to deploy naval mines in the Strait of Hormuz shipping lanes. And then immediately after, CNN corroborated it. And then immediately after that, U.S. forces, per Trump, destroyed 10 mine-laying boats. Trump put out a Truth Social post about that, saying that he would hit them hard and if they did not go out and immediately stop it. In addition, more on an update on the munitions. And again, like I'd mentioned at the top of the hour, or at the top of the show, I should say at this point, was that they are getting ready. The Pentagon is getting ready to file another multi-billion-dollar request for more munitions to be made. And that's in addition to, I think, the request that came from Trump for 25 B-2 bombers to be made. And here we have this from AF Post as well. That says, after half of the U.S. THAAD batteries lost operational ability or were destroyed, the U.S. is now relocating THAAD batteries from the Korean Peninsula to the Middle East, further cannibalizing defense forces meant to protect critical U.S. allies. And so, again, this is another instance of how it is weakening the United States overall. And again, at a certain point, if we're operating down super low on like our defense systems, that makes us vulnerable. That not only does it make us vulnerable, it makes us vulnerable in like a catastrophic kind of domino effect, which is you'll soon have ally after ally after ally, pull out at once. It's seemingly how a lot of this goes. So just immediately back away. They'll say, hey, we have to do whatever it is in our best interest to defend ourselves. And if that means we violate all these contracts we signed with you, then so be it. But you failed your promise to us, and so it's off the board now. Is that the direction we're heading? I really hope not. But again, this does confirm a bit of the munitions disparity, which I think this also says in here. Half of the U.S. THAAD batteries lost operational ability or were destroyed. So there's a confirmation right there from AF Post that we're already below half. And we were already strained coming into this as well, too. We'll be left with a single ally, yeah. And it's one who stabs us in the back and is our greatest ally, if you will. Then you have a report that came from Axios earlier that Trump has what? He's asked Israel to halt strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure. And why would Trump and the Trump administration be asking Israel? Well, for one, think about that. Why are we asking Israel? If Israel is doing something that's threatening the posterity in the overall just positioning of the United States and its people and its own energy supply, its own petrodollar system, why are we asking Israel? Why is the United States not telling Israel? Therein lies the problem. But the report came out from there. That was from Axios. And they want them to halt Iran's energy infrastructure. And largely the reasons listed were because they are terrified that it's going to cause, again, more global shock and therefore also increase the escalation from Iran. And we talked about the tens of billions of dollars in request of additional funding. Another side note I do have here is that the U.S. forces did use $5.6 billion worth of munitions in the first 48 hours. That's kind of insane. Then one of the things I mentioned earlier, but this is coming from the Netanyahu office, but he put out a statement. I'll put this on screen for you guys to see. This is coming from the Spectator Index. And they say, breaking, Netanyahu's office says to the Iranian people, quote, "We are your best ally." And that in the coming days, quote again, "We will create the conditions for you to grasp your destiny." And like I had said earlier, many people are taking quotes such as this one more so than the first one, than the former, as signs that they are willing to really step up the escalation, many people would say, in a nuclear weapon. And if you're listening to Jonathan Pollard or any of the other individuals, they've kind of already admitted to their willingness to do so for their people. And so Pollard got a hero's welcome when he stepped foot in Israel. So it seems people might be a lot more on his side than what we may believe. And then we did get the confirmation from Caroline Levitt that she did confirm the new casualty report does have 150 wounded. That's the new report. Now, she said specifically in the ballpark of there, so it could be a little bit less, a little bit more. And it seems they're separating the casualty count. It's keeping them separate from like death toll and then casualties, which is not normal. Casualty means both, but I guess for us being more specific here in America. And again, I do believe the official death toll count is 8 as of the moment. With 150 soldiers wounded. Now, one of the things I wanted to be sure that I showed you on screen was this report from the ground on Israel, and it is really bad. It's pretty rough. It's from a BBC correspondent. His name is Khosrow Naji. And we have two kind of in connection here, so we'll go and play both. But here's the first one, and it does come from Suleiman Ahmed, someone I don't particularly care for, but I will listen for the content. And so here we have it from BBC. Let me get it ready for you. This is a report on the ground that says this is bad in Tel Aviv.
از اوضاع احوال تل آویو بگو به ما.
جمال اینجا حملات موشکی ایران ادامه داشته. چندین بار امروز.
Well, that's unfortunate. I thought he was going to have subtitles on this. Forgive me. So take this with a grain of salt, actually. Somebody needs to subtitle this. But it's from Suleiman Ahmad. I did see other reports linking this and repeating this. This is what he says on the post. He says, BBC correspondent Khosrow Naji from Tel Aviv reports that the situation is very bad. Then he puts there that Israel is in a partial lockdown, that the streets are empty due to fear of Iranian attacks, shops are closed, and the situation is becoming unbearable for the population. Continues saying that even large Hezbollah missiles are hitting Tel Aviv without the sirens going off, and this is unprecedented. Now, what I do have coming from Fox News that is going to be in English is a Fox News correspondent who is also in Tel Aviv. Now, what he says is that nobody is allowed to show recognizable landmarks because the cluster bombs are coming in and they're hitting the city. And why would you not show landmarks? Well, because it would be demoralizing for people to see if the video footage is showing a decimated Tel Aviv. But here's this one.
And to the break here, we have sirens in Tel Aviv. Let's go back to correspondent Nate Foy, who is on the ground there. Hi, Nate.
Hey, Martha. So, yeah, as you can hear, the sirens are going off here in Tel Aviv, something that we've seen several times throughout the entire day. And what we could see here momentarily are interceptor missiles fired off. We have seen it right over my shoulder several different times. Again, Iran continues to show an offensive capability, launching missiles at central Israel. We have one interceptor over my shoulder right now. We can't show you because we can't show landmarks.
We can't show you because we can't show landmarks.
Martha, but something that has really changed here over the past couple days is the use of these cluster munitions by.
That makes more sense, actually, now that you're saying that they don't want to show interceptor flight paths. That would make more sense than showing landmarks. Maybe he's giving it away. Maybe the interceptors are all stationed at landmarks. That's funny. He's giving the game away. But that was the point I wanted to get across, was there are signs and reports coming out that is showing, that would lead you to believe, at the bare minimum, that it is much worse than what's being reported. And one other smaller one that I did catch was that the Qatar Interior Ministry announced serious security threats. And they told residents of the country that they must remain in their homes and not leave. That was about 3 hours ago when I saw that report. And that kind of brings us up to speed with where I was at as of a few hours ago with where the Iran war is at currently. So hopefully that was a good kind of breakdown, catching you up from when I had streamed last, bringing you through the weekend to where we are now. We do have some other stories that I wanted to cover. I think I will save... I'm probably going to save the Kai Schwimmer story for tomorrow. That's a bit more of a domestic social one that kind of talks about the groypers and the gatekeeping. And I'm sure you guys probably see me tweeting in defense with Kai. And just as he's kind of been on a crusade here lately with Joel Berry and Babylon B and Seth Dillon and Dana Loesch and all the other, the notorious, that's the same. Yeah, it's the same usual actors coming out. This anti-Semite, he's the good cop to Nick's bad cop. Like, oh, Lord have mercy, dude. Like, and it's just kind of sad too, because there's a little screenshot they showed because he was like invited to speak at an event, and it's like Kai Schwimmer, white dude, right? Young white kid, young white chipper, jovial white kid, and then you have a black dude, and a chick, and they're circling out Kai like he needs to be booted off this list. And it's like, this is a conservative organization in the middle of when white men have probably been at the oppressed psychologically and mind raped the most ever, period, being illegally even attacked, especially if you look in family court. And they still aren't understanding the optics of what it looks like when you're eliminating the only white speaker off of the tablet that's got 2 black dudes and a chick on it. Like, they don't care. They know what they're doing. But props to Kai for defending himself. He's actually really good at the social media thing. So props to him for standing up. And he did like my post defending him too. I didn't realize he would see something like that. So that's cool. How would you feel if Hitler liked your post? That's the tweet I saw earlier today or yesterday. I thought it was pretty good. I feel good. And but one other thing, 2 other things I want to really bring attention to now that we're here at the end. I guess 3. I'll cover this one. Nick Shirley's on Fox tonight, guys. That's awesome, dude. That's sick, man. Here's the thing. I'd give Nick Shirley a bit more rope after he defended Tyler Oliveira. I do still think he's being remotely groomed by a few people, but I'm unsure where that's at now after he kind of sided with Oliveira. But per Axios and Dominic Michael Trippi and a few other sources, the White House has now told and is telling House Republicans to stop talking about mass deportations. And so per RN, they actually go a little bit further. They say, in addition to that, in addition to telling them to stop talking about mass deportations, they said instead only focus on removing violent criminals. So the White House is now giving the pecking order down to the rest of the Republicans that mass deportations are not happening. Stop saying it. Change your language. Only violent criminals. And therefore, what is being set in stone is the betrayal of MAGA. It's Trump stabbing you in the back, and they are setting it in stone. They're filling in the cement, they're putting in the fingerprints, and they're making sure that it sticks. And lovely. How empowering does that make you guys feel about your future? And the next thing that may be going missed by a lot of things is also, this came from Polymarket, and I think there's a few other sources, but just in, it's been revealed that New Mexico authorities are searching for buried bodies at Epstein's Zorro Ranch, because the Epstein files was a Democrat hoax. And, just like, and here we go, here it is. Here's something else to chew on. And And I guess to wrap up a few points as well to bring it ahead, I was mainly not focused on anything domestic, but I did catch those things today. I figured I would bring your attention to them because the one about telling Republicans to stop talking about mass deportations is just like, that's crazy. Yeah, and if nothing's found, I guess, yeah, it's Democrat hoax. Trump wins. But America First, there are some more points. I'm just like, again, like I'm so out of the whole Epstein thing now too. Like the whole populace is told, and like we're focusing on the fact of like they're pedophiles, and no one's focusing on the fact of all the Jewish supremacy. No one's focusing on like what's uniting them all, like why they're all on the same team. Like and again, it became what Nick had said it would be. Now everyone's worried about the wrong things, and everyone's just mad that we're ruled by a bunch of pedophiles. Why are they pedophiles? And then it kind of devolves into something that doesn't talk about Jews or Jewish supremacy or all the reason why they were being blackmailed in the first place. But I did think Nick did have a great point on the political, like public opinion. I think that was pretty spot on, which is like, look how little it matters. Look at X. Well, what does it matter? What does it matter to the outcomes? I think maybe I need to refine my idea and thoughts on the tether that exists between culture and politics. I do still think it exists, but ultimately I think that's a great point, which is it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe the better point is like it doesn't matter if the culture is only like what is being stated in tweets and posts online, like what YouTubers are talking about, and what matters actually is like what we're not doing, which is the left when the left opposed the mass deportations and ICE, what were they doing? Well, they were jumping in front of vehicles and breaking the law and doing stupid things because they believed in it. They disrupted it. They stopped it. Now, Nick seems to believe that he thinks that there's a lot more of this that's fake, and sure, maybe. But what's happening on the right? Where's the right protest? Where was the Tea Party movement? Where was the anti-war crowd from the right? Where are the libertarians in uniform? Like, where's the Misa Institute? Like, there's nothing. There's like literally nothing. And what we are getting is Jake Lang. Like, that's the right-wing version, and everybody knows that's fake. And the right wing will pay consequences. And I'm not saying and part of it is a lot of people have family. Part of the reason I'm not going out and doing it. Like I have kids, and like I don't even live in an area nearby anything. I could go to Columbus actually. But none of it's transferring to a physical format. Like, it's a bunch of rhetoric. It's a bunch of sentiment. But what is it becoming? And maybe that's the next question. Maybe that's the next solution. Maybe that's the next thing to worry about and think about and work towards is what would be a good vehicle for the public sentiment that would be relevant towards the outcomes of what the U.S. government does? What would be the best vehicle to convert the public sentiment of anti-war into a vehicle that can then also affect and ensure that those values are represented by the government, and therefore the outcomes of the government reflect what the public sentiment is or the will of the people? But kind of a crazy thing to think about in a government that supposedly is built for this. The Republic was literally built for the will of the people to be exercised and represented through and through. And therein lies a problem, which is the Constitution was flawed, and it had a couple holes in it. It's not to say it was a bad document by any means, but it is to say every document does have its time. And I think, there's only so many things that can be written and have relevance for many years to come. And so there we are. I think to put a pin in it, I think largely one thing to pay attention to is the gas prices, is the oil prices. I think this is what will cause the Trump administration to back away. And I think we're all kind of sitting here looking and holding our hands and waiting for the next big piece of news to happen. And let me read a couple of these from Hook. Actually, could have put a few in real quick. I'll talk to you guys real quick before I sign off here. Louis Springen says, I want the docile worker drone spics for deported. They act like they didn't understand what the public wanted. They hate the idea of America and that is a country and people of mostly Western Euros. Yeah, which is one of the bigger elements that preventing a lot of people from even considering like working with the left is the fact that the majority of them hate you because you're white, and they just hate Europeans, and they hate the fact that Like things such as like schedule and the majority of American way of life was built and designed and thought of by white Europeans. I don't know what to do with that kind of natural, tension. Hook says there's plenty of excuses for continuing to vote Republican. There's a lot of people on the right that don't mean it when they issue consequences. They're just bluffing. And the elites know the good little Republicans are bluffing. Hook goes on and says, and they give the Republicans someone like Trump, who is more left-wing than Obama, to snuff out as many white, gullible voter bases as they can. You allow what you want more of. I agree with that. Are me and Hook voting Democrat? We're voting Newsom in 28? Sounds like it. And I get if people don't even feel comfortable voting Democrat, then just don't go. Then just don't do it. Don't vote for Israel one more time. Like, what are you doing? Like, can you at least do that? Don't lie to yourself about how it's somehow the lesser of two evils. Don't fall for that again, please. It'd be like the bare minimum for what you could take from the show is like, please don't fall for that stupid argument one more time, please, please. Lomet says Nico's becoming unbearable, dude. He's just like, he's something, dude. Like I like Sneeko. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but I appreciate him for the fact that he might feel like the most genuine person out there. And you see it a lot. He's just dumb. He just ends up in dumb moments. I like that. I like it when it feels genuine. As much as he may be oppositional to me, I'll take honesty and genuine nature over this fake goy slop that we get day in and day out. That just like, oh yeah, remove a wing. Remove a wing. Yo, let's crush it. If the bird can only fly with its left wing, will the bird still fly? I don't know. But I will say, as always, Christ is king. Like that can't be missed. I think the number one thing most people need to worry about is seek first the kingdom of God, as it says in Matthew. I think that can't go at all. Can't be missed. Period. End of story. Seek first the kingdom of God. I think that would be the first thing I would say to anybody is please, do your best to be involved in the Word of God. Be involved in understanding where you are in your journey with walking with Jesus Christ, being grounded and mastering the ideas and concepts so you can know and hold the power and authority of Scripture. And that's extremely important. And again, and I'll pose the question too. Like, I think a good starting spot is, can you explain the difference between a post-millennial and a pre-millennial? Can you explain the difference? Can you explain the differences in these eschatological worldviews? Maybe start there, and maybe that'll be the start of the journey of understanding and grasping some of these concepts. But again, as always, Christ is king. I'm rooting for you guys, as always. And I wish the best for everybody here, even despite all the different agreements and such. Costco law tunes in all the time, but I appreciate the fact that they disagree. That's what we want here, right? We want to see, some disagreement back and forth. And we're not all going to agree on different things. Sometimes I have wacky ideas, it just comes out of me sometimes. I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, no matter what. So you'll get that from me. But it just sometimes, maybe some days are more black pilled than others. And I think maybe that goes into decisions as well, too, when people are thinking about things. But it's always darkest before the dawn, and we can't give up. I mean, at the bare minimum, we can't give up. Our children deserve that. They deserve better. They deserve us to fight. At the bare minimum, our children deserve us to fight. And even if you don't have children, the younger generations deserve a generation that ahead of them that fought for them, that fought for their futures, that fought for their beliefs and their ability to determine their own futures and their own interest. Because at the bare minimum, that is the essence of what the founding fathers fought for. And if you can't honor the bare sacrifice of what they laid their lives down for, then are you even an American? I would say no. But with that, that'll be it. I appreciate it all. I appreciate you guys greatly. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Still be back tomorrow. Hopefully I can get a time to do a video. That's what I'm going to be aiming for. If not, the stream will definitely be here. I don't think I have any other announcements. You can support me at buymeacoffee.com/AtlasThugged. Also, the sponsor is Athenor Metallurgy. Shout out to them. Gotta be ballsy if you're going to sponsor this show, obviously. But support the entire administration at this point. Cash Patel, Pam Bondi. We haven't seen them in a hot minute. Wonder why? Because they're terrible PR people. Anyways, Pete Hegseth can join that list. JD Vance, Rubio, shoot him out of a cannon. Don't matter. And for the women, any woman over 150 pounds will be getting deported immediately. And any woman between 100 and 150 pounds, this is your 90-day notice to lose the weight, or you too will be shot out of a cannon. We are going to send your ass to Israel. With that, Christ is King. As always, seek first the kingdom of God. Guys, I will see you next time. Take care. It's a pleasure, as always. Peace.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Offensively